Hey, what up, boxing fans? This is the Rope-A-Dope Report. I am your host, Chris Carlson. If you like what you're hearing, subscribe to the channel. Also, check out the Rope-A-Dope Radio podcast. It's on Blog Talk. That's where it's live every Wednesday. Player FM, iTunes, check it out. Rate, review, Stitcher, tune in, yada, yada, yada. Let's get to this video, shall we? So, every tight fight for, especially if it means something, I tend to watch again, right? And this obviously means something. We're talking about a very, as far as boxing terms, a very famous name boxing wise, not mainstream just yet, but worldwide, Golovkin, right? So this video, it's labeled Golovkin should give Jacobs a rematch and also a quick recap, a rescore. So I'm just going to do the rescore real quick. Not going to go round by round or anything like that. The first 3 rounds I gave to Jacobs live. And on the rescore, that second round could have went to Golovkin. It could have been a tie round. That one's a tough one. Some people say that about the third, and I thought that live too. I still think that, but I still think that left hook or that overhand left that happened on the clinch was the best punch. I think pretty much clearly in that round. So that when it's evenly matched, you look for that one difference, and clearly that was the best shot in that round. So I still stuck the Jacobs had round 3. And then the only other changes I did, I flip-flop rounds. The 7th I actually gave to Golovkin this time. I thought he was effective enough early and late. He was throwing some nice right hands, but behind the jab, and also crosses. And then this time, instead of giving Golovkin the 8th, I gave it to Danny. I thought, the best punches landed were the short shot or the body shots. Some of them short, but and then the 12th round, I gave it this time. I gave it to Golovkin live. First time around, 10-10 I had it this time. I know people, do not like the 10-10 rounds and all that, and but then they love the eras back in the day of the black and white films. Go watch those things again and pay attention to the scorecards. You'll see a ton of tie rounds. Okay. So I had it 6-5-1 Danny or 7-5 still, but man, did I have it 6-6? I don't think so. But I could see 6-5-1, which that would make it a draw. Like I said, when I originally did this, 7-5 either way or a draw, that's fine with me. I'm not a guy who thinks that his scorecard is right and nobody else has the correct one unless it's exactly mine. You see that a lot on boxing Twitter, right? That everyone's got opinions. Everyone, likes what they like. Obviously, the jab was clearly in favor of Golovkin, but the body work was clearly in favor of Jacobs. Now, it's not that, Golovkin didn't throw to the body. He did, not as much, not nearly as much. And obviously, same with, Danny. He had a really solid jab at times, but he didn't use it nearly as much as Golovkin. So Golovkin did outland him. Most of that was due to that jab, right? Which some of them were solid. Some of them were just lands. Some of them did snap his neck back, no doubt about it. But then again, once again, we go to the body. Some of them made him reset, and you could see he was breathing heavy from some of that. Now, Golovkin got his second wind. Don't get me wrong. I thought Danny looked a little tired in the 12th. I thought Golovkin looked a little tired in the 11th. That last minute, I think the round was on the table. In the last minute, I saw a lot of misses from both. So I didn't think anybody grabbed that round enough. They tried to. They were, they were going for it, but they just couldn't. To me, it was on the table last minute, and nobody grabbed it off the table. Very competitive fight, though, and that brings me to the rematch. It's a must. It is a must. Now, if it's not next, I'm not going to cry about it. But it will be a stain on Golovkin's record, clearly. I mean, if you want to say Golovkin is exposed and he's way overrated, that's fine. That's your prerogative. I think he was exposed for some defensive flaws, before this fight, that's for sure. I will say this about cutting off the ring, though. He didn't cut the ring off as well as he had. Now, Daniel did really solid work at times on the outside, no doubt about it. But this isn't his game per se. Daniel Jacobs is not known to be on the outside for most of his fights. Now, that's not to say he hasn't shown it. That's not to say he hasn't done it for fights throughout his whole career. But I shouldn't say throughout. Like, in and out of his whole career, he's done it at times in fights, but not to this extent against a quality opponent where he was on the move the whole time. Not the whole time, but a lot of it. So that makes me, I don't think Jacobs is an high level outside fighter. Now he may now turn into a boxer puncher even more now and make, less mistakes. This is by far the least, when it was competitive anyway, and there was a guy in there that actually had a threat to beat him. Not, when your first 10 fights, and not not the comeback fights after the cancer where he took a softer route to kind of get back in the groove and all that, which you can't blame him at that point. But we hadn't seen Golovkin against a high level outside guy who was a middleweight. Kell Brook seems to be a pretty high level guy on the outside if you look at what he did with Porter, and also, the success he had, with Golovkin. But Danny was able to keep him at bay a good chunk beyond that jab. That's not to say he didn't land power punches and right hands and left hooks and crosses and some body shots. But overall, I was surprised that Danny, stayed on game plan that much, and he could have stayed on longer. He could have maybe won the fight had he, because there were some spots where my point was, how many times did you see Danny cornered and cut off? Not many. It was usually him stopping, not cornered, not on the ropes, but stopping in the ring and firing back, and sometimes staying too long. But it was a very solid fight. If you call this a great fight, I understand what you mean by that. Because this is usually what you get when you get high-level guys in the ring, top-level guys. Solid guys against each other. And it's funny, robbery, that Jacobs got robbed. No, tight fight. Good enough scorecards for me. 7 of 5s and a draw. That's not a robbery. And I think that there are some people that came on the train with Mayweather and Pacquiao in the last, 5, 6, 7 years, whatever. And they're not used to seeing top level against top level. So they're not used to having a competitive fight that can go either way, or even having a clear winner when it's a competitive fight. Everybody kind of is afraid of competitive fights because they have a guy. It's either they're a fanboy or they can't get their pick wrong. One or the other. And I'm not saying all people are like that. I'm just saying when you see these people like on Twitter saying you shouldn't be scoring, and especially when it's a media member. That's just like, come on, dude, be a little more professional. You're not the best scorecard or scorer, judge in the world either. Like, just calm down, breathe. It was a competitive fight. However you scored it, as long as it's within range, it wasn't a robbery. But to say that Danny shouldn't get the rematch is stupid too. Yeah, of course he should get the rematch. Now, if Golovkin wants to, they already have a plan. There's a what's considered a major event In Kazakhstan, they want to have the fight there to fight Billy Joe Saunders and win all the belts and unify. Maybe be the undisputed. Maybe then Canelo in September. I'm really not sure if that fight will still happen. But if it doesn't happen next, after the Saunders fight, then it has to be Danny. I mean, the gate did good. We don't know the pay-per-view numbers, but the gate did good. We know that. Just based off how many people were there and the ticket prices. That's easy to figure out. The date did very good. So to me, I want to see a rematch. It will be a stain, in my opinion, if he doesn't rematch this guy. You only fuel, for GGG fans and then fanboys, you only fuel the haters of GGG, right? You only fuel them if he doesn't rematch it. Because a lot of people were saying, including myself, that this is probably the best middleweight he's faced. And then it's a tight fight, and then he just dips on him. I'm not saying that's going to happen. I'm just saying it needs to have a rematch at some point. And it'll be interesting to see. If that's made, I'll definitely do a breakdown video on what they could do differently. Who would win that rematch? It'd be an interesting one. But yeah, man, a little bit of, a couple of different rounds here and there. Like I figured the first time around, there was a lot of swing rounds, but a good competitive fight. And like I said, I understand if people call it a great fight because it's two high-level guys. And you don't always get these crazy wars, man. A lot of times you don't get them when you're dealing with some high-level guys. And we've had more 50-50 fights than we had all last year, damn near. We had a lot of 50-50 fights so far. This was not a 50-50 fight on paper, but in the ring, this thing, could have went either way. Anyway, I'm going to get out of here. Let me know what you think, man. Do you think there should be a rematch? I sure do. Did you have the second or third time you watch it? Some people are already talking they've watched it 5, 8 times. How'd you score? Did you see something different? Let me know. Peace.